It's a busy week in Gamecock athletics as the baseball and softball teams both have series at home. All this and more on this episode of Capital City Sports. Welcome to this week's episode of Capital City Sports. I'm your host, Paige Hutchinson. On Thursday, the softball team squared off against Mercer. Thomas Gore was at Beckham Field.
The Gamecocks currently sit at 12th place in the SEC softball standings, but they've taken a brief break from conference play as they would face the Mercer Bears on Thursday at Beckham Field. The majority of this game saw defense that bent but would not break on both teams. Both Mercer and South Carolina struggled offensively for most of the game, except for in the second inning, where South Carolina would load the bases with one out, but would eventually fail to score. The pitching for the Gamecocks was a factor in today's game, as South Carolina pitcher Nikki Blue was able to retire batter after batter in this pitcher's duel. After 5 solid innings for Blue, Jessica Elliott would replace her in the 6th. Elliott dug herself a hole early, however, as the Bears would load the bases and eventually score to go up 1-0 in the 6th inning. Later in the bottom of the 6th, the Gamecocks would answer the Bears offensively, loading the bases and this time capitalizing by bringing in 3 runs, making it a final score of 3-1 Gamecocks. While this win does not do much, unfortunately, for the Gamecocks in the SEC standings, it does hopefully give them some sort of momentum heading into their next matchup against the number 1 ranked Florida State Seminoles. For Capital City Sports, I'm Thomas Gore.
The series against the Bulldogs continued on Saturday. Alyssa Butterson was at Founders Park.
We're here at Founders Park where the South Carolina Gamecocks are hosting a weekend series against Mississippi State. After a tough 7-4 loss during Game 1 of the series, South Carolina looks to bounce back and take a win during tonight's game. Gamecock fans and Cocky himself were feeling excited going into Game 2 of this weekend's matchup against the Bulldogs. Mississippi State's Luke Alexander hit a solo home run in the top of the 3rd to start the game off with a 1-0 lead. The Gamecocks immediately responded as Jacob Olsen led off with a single to left field, followed by a home run from Carlos Cortez, putting the Gamecocks ahead with a 2-1 lead. Due to multiple defensive errors from the Gamecocks, including a wild pitch from Coley Bowers, 3 singles took Mississippi State to a 5-2 lead in the top of the 9th. In the bottom of the 9th, Olsen walked, followed by another Cortez home run, bringing the score to 5-4. Although the last plays of the game were impressive, it just wasn't enough for the Gamecocks to steal victory, and the Bulldogs took the game 5-4. Though the Gamecocks didn't come out on top tonight, they certainly aren't out yet. This SEC battle continues Easter Sunday at 4 p.m., where they look to prevent a shutout loss for the series. For Capital City Sports, I'm Alyssa Butterson.
The Gamecocks and the Bulldogs wrapped up their 3-game set on Sunday. Claudia Chikamian was at the game.
The Gamecocks are entering Sunday's match in a bit of a rough patch. Their loss to Mississippi State both Friday and Saturday has given them their 3rd straight loss and 3rd straight SEC series loss. Coach Holbrook is sending Adam Hill to the mound to try and get the Gamecocks back on the right track. Adam Hill had another dominant outing, giving up just 1 run on 4 hits with 7 strikeouts. Now let's head to the 6th. After a leadoff double, Hill walks Roker. Magnum then advances on a wild pitch to put him at 3rd. Ryan Gridley then ropes a double through right field to bring in the first run of the game, and that gives the Bulldogs a 1-0 lead. With runners on the corners, Hill works himself out of a huge jam with an inning-ending double play to limit the damage to just 1 run. South Carolina responded almost immediately. Carlos Cortez up 2nd and hits one far and gone into right field, tying the game. That's his 3rd home run in the past 2 games, and he's been the offensive power the Gamecocks have desperately needed as of late. Jumping to the 8th now, Olsen hit a leadoff single followed by Cortez drawing a full count walk. Cullen then signals for a bunt and perfectly executes it, putting both runners in scoring position. Destino is in walk to load the bases, and Bride comes up with just one out and hits a sac fly to right, scoring Olsen and giving the Gamecocks their first lead of the game. Tolbert follows with a single up the middle, and that brings in both Cortez and Destino. Williams follows, shooting a double into left, and that plates Tolbert. The Gamecocks score one more as a Stokes single scores Williams, giving them 5 runs in the 8th and giving them a 6-1 lead. Tyler Johnson enters the game, making his first appearance back home in over a month, and he pitches a perfect 9th inning with 2 strikeouts to protect the lead. South Carolina gets the 6-1 win to salvage the series. This game was dominated by pitching as the 2 team starters gave up just 1 run while striking out a total of 13 batters. The 8th inning spark is all the Gamecocks needed to get the win and avoid the sweep. South Carolina will host Davidson here at Founders Park on Tuesday. For Capital City Sports, I'm Claudia Chikamian.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Capital City Sports. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at CCS on SGTV for all things Gamecock athletics. I'm Paige Hutchinson, and we'll see y'all next week.